Hello and welcome everyone to today's workshop on KC Mahindra Scholarships. Very quickly, I'll give you an outline of what we'll do today. I'll introduce you to Project EduAccess and our panelist for the day, who will then take you over the scholarship, give you a sense of the timeline, eligibility, what the application process looks like, what are the application documents that you require, what does the interview component look like, and then give you some general tips about the application process, after which we then move to a Q&A session. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we are Project EduAccess. We believe that access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities is a privilege that most people from marginalized communities are systematically denied through cost, information, and dispositional barriers. We try to attempt to improve inclusivity in these spaces by removing some of these barriers for marginalized communities in the global south. We do this by providing mentorship, engaging in advocacy, and running capacity building workshops both online and in person. And today's workshop is a part of our series of workshops on scholarship opportunities to pursue higher education abroad. To do that, we have with us a wonderful panelist who you would be familiar with as she's joined us for our previous workshops as well. So we have with us Surbhi, who did the BCL at University of Oxford, which is an LLM program at University of Oxford, and she received the KC Mahindra Scholarship for this program. Surbhi is currently doing a PhD in law at University of New South Wales. Thank you so much, Surbhi, for joining us today and for doing this workshop. I will hand it over to you now.
Thank you so much, Ms. and Project EduAccess, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure joining your workshops. Am I properly audible? Okay. So coming to KC Mahindra Scholarship, there are two things I wanted to highlight before we begin. First, that when I did the interview process for it, it was during the COVID time. So my interview was online. So my tips, I'm not a lot aware about the logistics of the physical interview, which is now the format, if I understand it correctly. And second, KC Mahindra involves two kinds of scholarship. During my time, which was 2 years ago, it was 8 lakh rupees as a interest-free loan. And then the second one within it was 4 lakh one. So I didn't get the 8 lakh full scholarship. I got the 4 lakh one. So these are the two things I wanted to highlight before we begin. So it's an interest-free loan, which is really helpful because even if some of the people who apply for scholarships, they do look for interviews, and interviews usually require mortgage, some amount of security guarantee. I think the limit is, at least during my time, it was 4 or 5 lakh. Beyond that, you needed something to give to get a loan, which is what makes it really helpful. And education interest is also a bit higher, and the condition for an education loan includes that sometimes right after when you come from your degree, you're expected to pay. Which makes it really a little difficult if you're expected to start paying your loan immediately. Which is why KC Mahindra is a good option, because you have some time, some buffer period after having done your degree to pay it off. I think 1 or 2 years time period is there. So you get some sort of cooling off period to pay off, which is why it's useful. And it's particularly can be useful for your expenses, living expenses there. So deadline is 31st March this year. And then in June somewhere you would have your interview. I had my interview in June. And what you need to do is right now, to be before 31st March, is they have, I think, an online form, kind of like a Google form that you're expected to fill. At this stage, that's what you'll do. And then you'll hear from them via email on an interview. This year's interview is taking place in person in Mumbai. At my time, it was on Teams. And it was very convenient. The environment during the entire process I found with KC Mahindra was very friendly. So it was not an adversarial process of any kind. I remember when I was giving my interview and it was online, and I think I was in like you are in a row, you've given 10-15 minutes time. There is someone before you, there is someone after you. So I was in waiting period and I was unmuted and I shouted to my mother that, oh, the interview has started, and everybody started laughing. So it was very friendly environment, which is what I sometimes feel that interviews don't tend to be that, but KC Mahindra, very encouraging. At least that's what I found during my time. So this is about broad overview of the scholarship. Can we go to the next slide, Misbah, please? The eligibility is that you have to be an Indian citizen. You should have a degree before, like you must have done your undergrad before applying for KC Mahindra. You're not eligible for doing an undergrad on the basis of KC Mahindra abroad. So it's for masters and beyond. And then you should have secured admission from a foreign university by August 2024. When you're filling out the form, you may not have gotten confirmation. Some of the universities do provide confirmation. So my Oxford results were out before I filled out the KC Mahindra form. But sometimes if it's not, you have to update them. And I do remember that before the interview and during that entire process, they did send me emails asking what is my course, what is the duration, all of that. So keep generally also an eye out. Apart from filling the form, they may sometimes email just seeking clarification on whether you have gotten an offer, what is the time period, things like that. But by August 2024, you must have sorry, by the time this process gets over, you must have an offer. And this is for this year, like, so the session starting from August 2024, not for the future or previous years. That has to be kept in mind. And yeah, of course, much like other scholarships, if you're in your 5th year and you're applying, say if you're doing law and you're in 5th year and then apply, you are still eligible. You just do need to give them your mark sheets if you're applying in like last semester of your final year. They'll ask for that. That's the eligibility. Next slide, Misbah. Thank you. So the process is online. When you go to this link, you will have to create an account, put an email, and there you just get questions that you fill out. And once you submit, you can't get it back. So be very careful while you're filling it out. Keep what I have found usually very helpful is to just create a folder in my laptop with the title scholarship, and then it has documents for all the scholarships that I applied for. So might be helpful that before you sit to fill out this form online, just go through their website, read all the eligibility documents that you need, and create a folder and put them there, because you might be asked to upload them. So instead of wasting time looking everywhere and losing track of what you're doing, just put everything that you need, all the documents in a folder before you start filling out on the online form, because it just streamlines the process and makes sure that you've not missed out on anything that you were expected to submit. Yeah, and if generally you cannot change anything, but just in case there is an email, you can write to them, but you can't generally change your application process. But if you have an update about your admission, your final mark sheet of your current degree, you can write to them, and they do respond. Yeah, I found them to be very responsive. Yes. Next slide, Ms. So these are the documents you need. You need copy of your admission letter. If you haven't received it, you need to state that in your documents. This was not the case with me because I'd gotten my result. And if as soon as you get it, to inform them via email that you have gotten your admission letter. You would need a letter reference from your referee. And the referee is expected to send it to their official email. and generally it's expected that they would not send from personal ID, rather institutional email, because that shows that they are, it's not some random person, but it is the person from an authorized place who is sending. But usually, I mean, it's not just with KC Mahindra, it's preferred that if you have a referee, they should send an email from their institutional email. And it can be, so usually there are two kinds of reference letters, not just with KC Mahindra, generally also it can be either your professors or your employees, and both are acceptable for KC Mahindra. You can submit either, but they have to be official from on an official letterhead, sent to an official, sent from an official email. So this is the first two documents. Next slide. Can I just also give a tip on application documents? When you're submitting your documents, not just for KC Mahindra, just name them. So I name like Surbhi admission letter, Surbhi rank certificate, Surbhi 10th mark sheet, Surbhi 12th mark sheet, so that they have the entire folder. Like, just don't upload 10th certificate. They must be getting a lot of application, and our job, it just looks a little more professional if you just name your files properly, so that whoever is managing the files, it's not very big deal, but it just looks slightly more professional. So that's why I suggested that before you sit out to fill out that form, just create a folder in your computer, naming everything. Should be 10 certificate, 12 certificate, admission letter, all of that. You need a short statement of purpose. The statement of purpose is fairly fairly general. So you have to tell what is it that you're applying for, why are you applying for it, and what are your future plans. For any SOP, these are the broadly three questions that you have. What is the course? Just introducing yourself. What is the course that you're applying? Why are you applying for it? What is your previous experience on that field that you're applying for, and what is your future plan? And it's a short statement. And here it's also important to highlight that, look, your application is going to be your syllabus for your interview in some sense, right? Because they don't know you beyond what you submit. So use your CV and SOP and interview as these syllabus for your interviews. So because that's on the basis of which they would get to know who you are, right? And have a skeleton, like your CV, for example, should be divided into, my CV, for example, because I want to become a teacher and go into academia. So my CV currently is divided in 5 headers. It's education, teaching and research experience, because I want to become a teacher, publication, because I want to go into academia, so publication matters for me, editorial experience, because again, you want to have some editorial experience, work with journals as editors for becoming an academician, and public engagement, where I have commented in public places on academic issues. So anybody who looks at my CV would see these 5 headers. And if I want to highlight, if I'm talking in interview, those pointers should come out. That first, that I've gotten education for it, that's visible from your CV, that I've taught it, I've researched in it, and I've publicly engaged with it. That's the 3 messages anybody who would see my CV right now would get. That I write on it in academic journals, I talk about it in public spaces, and that I've taught these subjects. So that's a skeleton. So all of this, when the interviewers are interviewing multiple people, what makes you stand out, if you have very much clarity that these are the 3 things about me. I read on it, I teach, and I write in public spaces on these issues. Like, I work in law and gender, so that these are the things that I am working on. So that's what makes you stand out, because they would remember that there was this person who worked on law and gender, who has written in newspapers on it, who's done these courses, worked with organization on this issue. So your CV and SOP should sort of speak to each other. So what you should do in your statement of purposes, begin by telling that I am so and so, I've done my undergrad in law and I'm applying for BCL in University of Oxford. Then second para, that I am interested in working on gender and human rights. I'm just giving my example. I have previously done work. I have done work on ground, working with these organizations. I've done research, working with these areas. And I have also written in this area. And then finally going to Oxford, because there are people who work in human rights. These are the human rights and gender courses that I want to take. Hence, Oxford, this degree would fit with me, right? And your CV is like a massive document. It has a lot of things. So you should use your statement of purpose to highlight the things from your CV that you want them to pay attention to. So if you have any major publications, say if you published, I'm talking of academia, this is not applicable to everyone. Some of the if you're looking to say litigate or like do something else, work in field of engineering, publications might not be that necessary. But I'm just giving example of something that is important and significant to my field that I've published in this area. And if you published in a high-ranking journal, mention that in your SOP. So they both, when they read the CV and SOP, they both fit in together and bring out your personality. It's both of them are form of a storytelling, that you are telling the reader who are you, what are the things you care for, and what you've done in that field. So use your SOP to highlight the things that you might not be able to explain in detail in your CV, because CVs are supposed to be short, they're supposed to be pointed. So use your SOP to do that. And the other thing I wanted to also say about statement of purpose is that with just the way with all good writing, the rules that apply to good writing also apply to good statement of purpose writing. A good piece of writing has a skeleton. It has, say, 3 or 4 clear paragraphs. First point tells you what course you're applying for. Second course tells you why you are eligible for it. Third tells you what makes the course eligible for you. How does the course fit in with your future plans, right? So 3 paragraphs clear. And that's not just with KC Mahindra, generally 3-4 paragraphs, very clear, with each paragraph having 1 point. One idea in 1 paragraph. First, who am I? Second, why BCL? Third, what makes me suitable for BCL? And fourth, what are my future plans? And with all good writing, it has to be structured. So by the time when reader finishes reading your SOP, they have clear idea of what you did in first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, fourth paragraph. And with just as good writing, these are the things with good writing. Same is with SOP. The sentences, don't use passive voice, use active voice, use short sentences, use simple sentences. Don't have a statement of purpose which has a paragraph which is 5 lines without any full stop. It's not really helpful. And there's a logical reason for that. When we speak, there are only as many words as we can speak in one breath. So when you write SOPs that are running into long lines, your reader will have to go back and begin reading that statement from, like, begin reading that sentence again. So your job, just like any other good writing, even in a short statement, your job is to make a reader's job easier. So have short sentences, active voice, simple sentences. Don't use fancy words. Because that you using a lot of adjectives, a lot of adverbs, a lot of fancy words actually becomes very clear to a reader that you are sort of dramatic, fluffing, you're bluffing in certain sense. So use simple sentences, point to point, and a structure. 4 paragraphs, cut to cut. This is who I am. This is the course. Why this course? Why me? And what are my future plans? So that it's easy for a reader. That's what makes a good SOP stand out. It's just a good, clear piece of writing with clear sense of why, what, and what in future. So that's about the statement. Then you have to write your the English language record. For here, I did not submit this because Oxford had waived my English language condition at that point, and I think I mentioned that in that answer. So check that. Don't feel entirely restricted about it. If you have gotten a, if your university is okay with language, just check that. Whatever is required with your course, they would accept that. Then, of course, evidence of your previous degree or your previous certificates, rank certificates, 10th, 12th class mark sheet, copy of your passport. Can you go down? And Ms. Bice, the entire slide is not visible. Sorry, just in the previous slide. There were last 2 pointers that were not visible, which are, I think, which is CV. I think the last point is just latest CV. And I think I've talked about bit about CV already. You have Project EduAccess have they have resources on good CV writing. So please look those up. Again, same thing with CV. Have a clear structure that these are the things that required for this degree. Work experience, for example, let's say it's engineering. I'm just presuming, I have no idea how applications work for engineering, but say you require work experience, you require learning about some programming codes. I'm just presuming that's your second subhead. So have those subheads very clear: education, work experience, the computer languages that you know, let's say. So have that structure very clear and go and look at Project EduAccess resources on CV, and both in CV and in SOP, please make other people read it. Because when you're in process of just applying continuously, sometimes it happens that we don't have fresh eyes, and sometimes we make obvious mistakes. We make sentences which are coming across as bluffing, which are not properly written. So make your friends read it so that you're very clear that you've not sort of made any grammar mistakes, any editorial mistakes. It might also be helpful to use some of the online softwares available for grammar and editing, because they're not generative sort of softwares. They don't generate text. They just tell you this is the grammar mistake. So might be helpful to do that. Next slide, Miswa. Interview. So my interview was fairly, it's a general interview because it's not for a particular field. So you have very diverse set of panel who are not, say, necessarily from law. They might be from different backgrounds, and it's very brief also. I think when it was online, it was 10 to 15 minutes. So what the question they had asked me were about just a little bit about from where I was joining, my background. And the other thing they had asked me about the general, apart from the general questions, they had just asked me, I think at that time, something related to a legal case at the time. I think it was Sabrimala judgment or something on Sabrimala judgment had come out. So what that tells you is that because you have a fairly diverse panel, it might be helpful to just look up the general news from your field. So if you are a lawyer, just look up the law news that has been talked about in media recently, because they might pick up on that and may ask you questions on that. So because I had said that I'm interested in gender and law, and the Sabrimala case or something related to Sabrimala was in news, so I got a question asked on that. And they asked me my opinion, and I gave them my opinion and a reason for my opinion. But the interview is, I do not find it to be adversarial, or it was very comfortable environment. They would ask you based on, as I said, based on your pointer, your CV and SOP. CV and SOP are syllabus for your interview. So generic question on what made you select the program, why this university, what is your previous experience in the field, what would you want to do after you finish your degree? So all the questions that you've written in your SOP. So just having very 1 or 2 points to all of these questions. So you may want to look at after the interview, the recording would be available. Just look at these questions, note them down, and have 2 pointers about each, because it's not a long interview that you can just ramble continuously and talk. Just you need to have 2 pointers. Why this program? Because BCL is one of the prestigious LLM program. But if I said just that, that's a very broad answer. That okay, BCL is a prestigious program. It doesn't tell much. So what you need to be general, but also give an idea that you're a serious person, and that's why you are applying for it. So say, for example, I would have said that that I'm applying for Oxford because they have this system of tutorial where they make you sit and check, if the professors check your essay, so where you get a fairly detailed feedback on your writing. So one a broader point, one a specific point might be helpful, but note these questions down and have 2 pointers and an example of something. Say, for example, what is the previous work you've done? So you tell what are the skills that you've done from previous work and an example of it. So just 2 pointers and an example. So prepare before interview in this process? That what are the two things that you would want to say? And just an example, if they give you time to sort of present your example, because that shows that you've thought out your why you are doing it, and you've thought out with concrete examples. And they're fairly broad questions, so you can it gives you a lot more scope for creating an impression. Yeah, these are, I think, my suggestions on interview. Just have pointers, clear cut, and don't make them too generic, saying Oxford is the prestigious university. Yeah, okay, but that doesn't tell anything about why I am applying to it. So you have to be certain that there are these professors that I want to work with. They have this special kind of setup that they may give you detailed feedback, whatever it is. So give a fairly broad point, but also that something that shows that you know what you're doing and that you're a serious person. Next slide, Misbah. Yeah, I think I've fairly already covered these points. Have one or two clear points, give example of it if you get time. Um, then the panel is fairly diverse, the environment was friendly, stay updated about news, bring attention to your CV, something that stands out, just point that out. As I said, if I were applying for an academic, I wanted to say that I want to become an academician, I would highlight some major publication I've done to show that I've worked in that area. And the final point was that once you're selected, a bunch of documents that you require, your PAN card is required, your travel ticket that you're traveling, and you have final confirmation, all of that is required. And they require you to sign an agreement. So once you are done and you get your confirmation, start getting those sort of PAN card, bank details, documents related to bank all set up. That will ease your process, because by the time results come, you would already be in process of leaving. So once you've done the interview, hope for the best, and then start preparing all these documents, because it will require you signing a document. It's an agreement, proper agreement that you sign with them. So might be helpful to just prepare for that, because by the time result would come, you would already be looking to go. That's it. That's from me. Thank you, Ms. Pa. I think we have a couple of questions in the chat. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying thank you so much for being so comprehensive with, the PPT and the explanation. Yeah, there are a bunch of questions in chat. So maybe we can start taking those. And if anyone else has any more questions, you can raise your hand and ask your questions directly to Surbhi, or you can put them in chat and we'll take it up. So the first question is there an age limit?
I don't think so. As far as I can recall, it wasn't during my time. Might be helpful to, because again, I did it during COVID time, so might be helpful to just check it again. But as far as I can remember, no.
Yeah, I also don't recall reading about an age limit on the website.
I think in terms of age limit, I think roads is the only one which has an age limit. I'm not aware of others that have age limit. KC Mahindra, as far as I can recall, it didn't have an age limit.
Okay. Can we upload a conditional offer letter with our application?
You should upload a conditional offer letter. And if later, depending on what are your conditions, like I remember my condition was that you have to clear, I think it was English language. Later, I wrote an email to them telling why I shouldn't be asked to give an English test, and they approved it. But if I recall correctly, I did upload a conditional offer letter. You can submit and then tell them that this is the status. So upload a conditional offer letter from what I recall, but email them telling that this is what it is. Sending an email for anything is just a good idea. So I would upload as far as I can remember, but read their conditions once again and send an email.
Okay. Does PhD qualify to be a postgraduate course for this scholarship?
As far as I can recall, this is again based on 2 years ago, no, because I think it's just for 1 year, and I think PhD is at least for 3 years. So I don't think so PhD applies, but maybe helpful to look at this year's condition a little more carefully. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there's one question in my DM. Can I take the English language test after applying for the scholarship, as my university requires it as a condition on the offer?
Okay, so I did not have that issue. I don't, because I was in the situation where it was that kind of that my condition was waived. But if you do require an English language test, just tell them that you are taking it and submit a document. Say you booked a test, booked a ticket, booked. You need to book the TOEFL and all of those tests, right? So I wouldn't restrict myself from applying just because my test hasn't been done yet, because I mean it takes 15 days to book it and all of that, so it's whole logistical issue. I wouldn't stop myself from applying for it, but you do need to tell them that you're doing it and that you booked a test. So don't stop from applying just because you've not done the test yet. But before they sign the final contract, you do need an unconditional offer. So it might be better to do the English test sooner rather than later. But don't stop yourself from applying solely based on that, and tell them that I've booked it and happening. But don't stop yourself from applying based on that reason.
Great. Another question is, thank you for the presentation. The application does not give any prompt for the SOP as such. Could you talk a bit more about the SOP structure?
So the SOP structure that I followed was again the fairly general, that I started by saying that I am so and so. I'm interested in working in area of human rights, constitutional law, and gender, and I'm applying for the scholarship to study BCL in University of Oxford. So that's just first generic introduction paragraph. Second paragraph I wrote was that why is it that I'm interested in these areas? What is my previous experience in this area? And that's what that was about. Second paragraph is about you, that what makes you qualify, what makes you suitable for doing this work, what is your previous experience. Third paragraph is about the university that you're applying. Why is it important to your career? What is it that it brings to your what is it that it brings to your CV? Because they want to invest in people who have sort of clear idea of what they're doing, right? And who have a vision for their future, that this is what I want to do. So first, generic, that this is what I am, and I've gotten an offer from BCL, and hence I'm applying for KC Mahindra. Second, who are you? Like, why, what is your previous experience? Why do we want to work in this area? Second paragraph is about you and what makes you a good candidate, what makes you a qualified candidate. Third paragraph is about the university, the course that you're applying, that why should KC Mahindra fund that university and that course. So you show that this course is prestigious, this course is important to my career. Prestigious is the wrong word to say, but it's important to my area, that will help me develop whatever my future goals is. And fourth is that this is my future goal. So these are the four broad questions that I would answer in my SOP. Yeah, I have gotten a direct message, which is, this question is not related to scholarship, but my Oxford application. I got a conditional offer for MSc in criminology and criminal justice. The English language test was not waived because there was a gap of more than 2 years from my undergrad, only 2 months more. Should I request a waiver again? There's no harm in writing to them. I don't know how does this work internally. And so I wouldn't say that you shouldn't write an email. What is the worst from an email is that they don't respond, or they respond negatively. You miss 100% of shots you don't take. So just write to them explaining this. And if you have, particularly after your degree for 2 years, you've worked in English, like whatever your field of work was, highlight that. So for example, I wrote in my application that I finished my undergrad in this year, and then I was affiliated with an institution which is related to Delhi High Court. And as per Delhi High Court's rules, everything is in English. So I highlighted that. But having said that, I would suggest you write to them. But also, I would point out that when I did it, this was COVID time. So I'm not sure what is the internal decision making of Oxford vis-a-vis English language requirement. It might have been the case that it's because of COVID that they had waived some conditions. I'm not very clear on that what is their internal process, because at that time nothing was very clear on the website. But write an email. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Another question is, does the KC Mahindra scholarship give more important to experience or academic history?
Uh, again, as I said, because it's a fairly broad scholarship, and because you have a very diverse set of panelists, I don't think there is a very clear answer to this question. Because what I have, my feeling is that what matters is that this is the field for you and you've done things in it, and that you have a future plan of doing things in it. So if it's a field where academic history doesn't matter, if it's a field where hands-on experience matters more, then they may consider that. But if it's a field where academic history matters, then they may consider that. Because there can't be a very yes or no or clear this or that answer to that, because the process is fairly broad, and they're very dynamic in how they're looking at the applications of people. But so it's not a very clear answer. Depends on your field, depends on what you want to do, how do you write your SOP. But I wouldn't feel entirely discouraged from applying if I wasn't a topper. I don't think my sense is they want people who have capability of doing something and clear vision of what they want to do. I wouldn't feel discouraged from applying if I didn't have a particular work experience or a particular academic history. I would still apply. Yeah.
Okay, great. Another question that has come in my DM, which again is not related to the scholarship as such, but is could you suggest some tools or resources that can improve our writing skills? Just
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a workshop unto itself.
yeah.
Does Project EduAccess organizes workshops on writing skills, Misbah?
Not yet.
Okay.
But hopefully, maybe in the next application cycle, we'll expand our scope, but not yet, not
Not yet. Yeah.
generally
Okay.
academic writing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think, see, there's a very broad, like a very, we can have workshop after workshop on this, but fairly broad thing I would say is to a good writing, as I was saying, for writing SOP is a piece that is when you write, before writing, have a clear structure. It's writing is like a train journey. When you're in a train, you know how far away you are from your final destination. So for me, a good writing is that tells what is going to happen. So if I'm writing a piece that why you should become mentor for Project EduAccess. So I would begin by that this is the piece which is going to argue that why becoming a mentor for Project EduAccess is a rewarding experience. For doing this, I have 4 reasons. First, that people in Project EduAccess are great. Second, I will feel satisfied with the process. Third, there's for that. So when you write, before writing, that's an important thing to do your homework, which is to have a structure in your mind that I have 4 points as to why someone should join as a mentor to Project EduAccess. One is based on structure of Project EduAccess. Second is based on my ability. Third is based on the people who are part of Project EduAccess. So these 3 broad reasons, right? So have a structure before writing and signpost to your reader that this is what is going to happen. These are the 3 reasons that I'm going to cover in these 3 parts of this essay. So have a good piece of writing. If you have a question, sit and draw like on your pen and paper if that helps, and then start writing. And again, good writing sticks to one point in one paragraph, sticks to short sentences, clear sentences, active voice, no passive voice, avoids too many adjectives, too many adverbs. Adjectives and adverbs do not add anything to your writing rather than just sounding bluffy. So these are the broad points. But I think, and for grammar and all, you do have Grammarly. Universities at some places have subscription to Grammarly, and they allow use of Grammarly to edit your grammar. I don't, I haven't used any tools to write. What I have learned is from process of writing is just that you keep doing it and it's improved. It's like swimming. You can know the theory of swimming, but you won't learn until you jump into a pool and do it. Same way as writing. When I read my pieces from back in 2015 and 2016, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this horrible thing that I've written? But then you continuously keep practicing and it improves. I know it sounds very TED talky to say that practice and you'll improve, but literally that is the thing, that you know the tips, that you have to write one point in one paragraph, short sentences, simple sentences. But these are the basic things. But if you keep doing it, that's how you'll improve. I don't think there are tools which can write, or there can be some tools to help you edit the grammar, paraphrase some of this, but the only solution to good writing is just to write. I'm sorry if that was not very helpful.
No, I think I completely agree and would also suggest the same. Although there's a lot to learn from Surbhi, who's written really well, a lot, and she's published a lot. So yes, I would say follow everything, as will I. um, okay, I don't think there's any more questions in chat. Again, if anyone has any other question, please raise your hand and ask your question now. Otherwise, we will end the session. As Surbhi said, the deadline is
31st of March.
yeah, is 31st of March. And okay, there's another question that has just come in my DM, so I'll just quickly take that. Is about the interview. Again, it's slightly more generic, which is that how do you sort of improve your communication skills for an interview? Are there any tips that you have for that?
Yeah, I think my tips for interview would be that there was a slide in this presentation which had the generic broad question, right? So my suggestion for practicing interview would be to have 2 pointers to all of those questions. Write 2 pointers. Why Oxford? Why this course? Why me? Why KC Mahindra? What is my future plan, right? These were the 5 broad questions. 2 pointers to all of that. And then practice it with someone, sit with a friend. You don't need like an expert person to sort of no, do an interview. It's just about communication. So your friend would be able to tell you if you're giving too long an answer, too long-winded an answer to a question. And in a short interview like this, the point is to come directly to the point and give example of it. You like give example of why you fit, right? So having quick points rather than just having very broad, open-ended, very sort of like things that show that you've not really thought about this question. So what I would once if I got an email saying that you are now selected for the next round for interview, what I would do is just have these two points to all of these questions and practice that speech with a friend who can tell when I am continuously talking on and on, when I'm talking too less, where I should expand more, just that. If I wouldn't suggest writing an entire speech or something because that becomes too practiced, it doesn't look organic. And also you might get completely thrown off if they don't ask any of those questions. But I do suggest having some pointers that this is, if I were asked why Oxford, these are the 2 points I'll say. Because the questions are broad, you do need to bring something more than mere a generic answer to the table, right? Just saying that Oxford is it's a famous university is neither here nor there. So just having those clear-cut pointers might be helpful. I think there's one more question, which is how many total school scholarships do they give out each year? I don't think the website mentions a number, but I think it's 2 for 8 lakh, like 10 lakh, or 2 or 3 for 4 or 5 lakh. Yeah, I think that's the broad criteria. 2 for, I think 1 or 2 for the total, the full scholarship, and 2 or 3 for the half scholarship.
So as per the website says, 3 people will get the full
5
10
lakh.
lakhs, the 10
So you
lakhs.
would get, okay, okay. I
Yeah.
think in my year it wasn't very clearly written. If it was 2, I think they might have changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think maybe they've increased it to 3 for 10
They've
lakh.
increased the amount also.
Yeah.
It during my time it was 8 lakh in full, which is great that now it's 10 lakh, which was very substantial amount.
But they've not mentioned for 5 lakhs how many get
Yeah.
it. So again,
Yeah, I don't think at my time it was very clearly written. I think it's I mean it's the more broad process. So I think it's kind of like how many people they like, sort of also the list that they must prepare. It's my sense. I have no idea how it does it internally function. But only thing I would say is that I had fun time doing the interview and they were not adversarial. They were it was a fun interview. I enjoyed the process, even including which was me shouting to my mother that, oh, the interview has started, and we had a laugh about it. Yeah.
that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, Surbhi, again for joining us today and taking the workshop. Thank you everyone who joined us today, and all the best with your applications. A recording of this workshop will be available on our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions and you are not a mentee with us, you can reach out to us at info@projecteduaccess.com. But if you are a mentee, then you know where to reach us. And yeah, thank you so much. Hope you all have a nice rest of your Sunday.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Surbhi.
Thank you, Ms.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.